Good morning, everyone. So day 3 is starting. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the panelists for being here. With Denis Stokkink, we are going to co-facilitate this debate. He's the chairman of the think tank for Solidarity, and she's the author of a study on Africa and social and solidarity economy. I have known her for a number of years. Now we're going to start this debate, which is topical. We're going to start with Chantaline Carpentier, then Guy Chami will take the floor, and Sifa Chiyoge, and Antonella Noya, and Alon Ko. And they will actually introduce themselves as we give them the floor to open this discussion. This is an important moment, as we have repeated over the days, because the resolution adopted on the 28th of April by the United Nations has given you a key for new ways of action, and we need to tap this opportunity to use this key for social and solidarity economy, but also by SSE, by cities and territories, by states, and obviously by the United Nations and UN agencies or international organizations as a whole. So this is a big step that we're going through all together. So I'm going to ask Chantaline Carpentier to introduce herself, and I'm going to ask her a couple of questions. And we can ask the same question for the resolution adopted by ILO, which dynamics around which I was saying that this is a key, but a key for what? Let me take a couple of examples. Does it mean that there will be dedicated funds for SSE at the international level, more significant funds? So I'm thinking about the World Bank, IMF, and other institutions. So this is a question. Second, and you are in a better position to talk about it, Chantaline, of the task force, which new type of support between UN agencies and the social and solidarity economy. Thank you, Thierry. Good morning, each and everyone. As Thierry is saying, I'm the chair of the task force of the SSE, and I'm in the shoes of Big Jeantet, who was chairman before me. This task force was set up 10 years ago. We've been working at the UN to increase visibility within UN institutions of social and solidarity economy, to integrate it in our programs. Now this is done. We have our resolution, and as Thierry said, what do we do? What are the next steps for us at the UN? For those who do not know how it operates, member states, so they get together. So the mandate is based on the work of the task force, and it is to help member states who wish so to implement political frameworks in order to advance and promote social and solidarity economy. This resolution says that it should be done with the means we have at our disposals. So, but we are asked also, and this is the second question that you're asking, on the funding and funds. The second mandate is directed to multilateral funding institutions and development banks, so that they develop funds dedicated to social and solidarity economy. And this means that the task force should help, because this knowledge is necessarily within these institutions. And we have already approached organizations working on the financing of social and solidarity economy to see how we can get together in order to develop this capacity and send it, transmit it. And that way, the objective is to dedicate funds to SSE. The mandate of the resolution is also on, it's about encouraging member states to do a number of things. One, promote and implement strategies and frameworks for SSE, develop statistics to measure the magnitude of SSE in terms of employment, in terms of GDP, but also the social impact and environmental impact. Because until now, we only measure one dimension of the three dimensions of sustainable development. Economy, we need to measure the social and environmental aspects. We also have a mandate to include SSE in curriculum. So the task force should think about working with all actors in the sector of education and research in order to scale up this work. And lastly, entrepreneurship. We need to support entrepreneurship of SSE, and I think UN stuck. My second hat is as the head of in the United Nations Conference on Trade. At the UNTAC, we need to see how to promote SSE. Do you want me to proceed a little bit? How do we get there? Other national from Quebec, I approached my colleagues to see if they would be interested in receiving the task force. You know that Quebec, we're going to celebrate the 10th anniversary on the law on SSE, and we'll have a positive response, fingers crossed. We also approach the case Populaire Solidaire that many people know here, and they are seasoned in the financing of SSE, to see if they can help us to support a task force specifically dedicated to the financing of social and solidarity economy. And all those that are in education, research, I invite them to approach the task force. So this idea is that you're sending us your interest. We are meeting in Montreal, and we're going to develop our implementation work plan. We're going to bring actors and give them the tools so that they can do this promotion and support actors in the field at the local, regional, and international level, so that we can equip them, so that all together we can fast-track the implementation. Secondly, the resolution is asking the Secretary General of UN via the task force to draft a report of the Secretary General for September 2024. All the results we'll have. GSEF is part of the task force and many other organizations. So we have to produce a report. We're working with the So ILO is serves as vice chair of the task force. So we're going to capture all the progress. We need also to identify all the obstacles. And member states will so this requires also a political support. Yesterday I had a positive meeting with ministers of Senegal, Côte d'Ivoire, and they all promise to actually set up a group to help us advance SSE. I'm going to stop here. So thank you.
understood, the task force is a type of workshop and with the SSE, and to remember the words like engagement, support, and a measure of efficiency. So, Denis, you do not have a mic. Thank you very much. I would like now say good morning to everyone and President Gishami, who is responsible of ILO, the ILO that has made an important declaration on the same day as the city, where the planets were aligned. That was on June 10, 2022, and the ILO declaration laid emphasis on the definition of SSE, which is the foundations on which we all work, and this is a step, important, a giant step forward, and we should congratulate ILO for that extraordinary work that they did on our General Assembly, last year's Assembly, which is the way ahead. How can we start from the development, in particular in this G2023 GSEF, from transitioning from a social economy to a solidarity economy. And shall I give you the floor now? Good morning. The term of the ILO, just to clarify, we're going to talk about the organization. Your mic. No sound. No sound. I was told that I do not exercise, I have to stand up now. So I was trying to explain that sometimes you talk about the international organization, and B, it is a secretariat. So we are a tripartite organization, and our man, if you have to congratulate the ILO, it's you that we should be congratulating, because it's thanks to you that we have reached these results. And one of the means used by the International Labour Organization is decent work, productive work that generates income, rights, social protection, and that supports sustainable growth. And what this organization is doing, thanks to SSE, usually give an example. The International Labour Officer was created in 1920, just to show you an old commitment, and the first general director came from these cooperatives. And as it is said, the most important point of the SSE's engagement, resolution is good, but if we don't put in place the means to implement it, then it's useless. So I think in November of last year, with the adoption of an action plan and a strategy to implement this resolution on SSE, this strategy and action plan have three objectives. The first, to help understand the realities of decent work. What do we understand from that? It has to do with research, because as one colleague has said, because as we talk about SSE, a lot of people don't understand the idea. So we have to encourage research work and also collect statistics, because without statistics we won't be able to quantify. So the action plan and the strategy will encourage work on statistics, on SSE, and the last element of this objective is a better management of knowledge in that area. The second one has to do with capacity building and to promote SSE. What do you mean by that? We mean capacity building for the political decision makers. We need laws on SSE, legislation, and the social partners, unions and company managers, but also to reinforce the structure of SSE as such. And the last objective, in terms of public education, we also need to refer to the youth, because we need to include SS in education. And the third objective, this one also is in line with what has been said so far, is a better cohesion between the different actions that SSE does. Better internal knowledge. I don't know how you said it. You know, we have to start from ourselves before developing, and a better coherence with the United Nations agency, because more and more agencies are going to work on that in the United Nations system to coordinate our action plan, and a better cohesion with other stakeholders at the international level, the international financial institutions, other development partners. And the last objective with 5 sectors. The first is transition from formal to informal. This element was underlined, and we have to work more on that. The second one has to do with the care economy. After COVID, we need to push forward the role that SSE has to play in, and the supply chain. We also have a lot to do in terms of fundamental rights. So we believe SSE has a lot to do. Another key sector in countries in situation of crisis, and we would be able to talk about that. ILO has started talking about that, working on those issues. And the last one, I think I have said it all. I've said it all. So the idea is to encourage cohesion and to encourage the partners who work with us on the SSE. And much has been done, but much is still to be done. So any work that has to be done by the different stakeholders, this is where the stakeholders are, the challenge are. So we should stay together, set up a very clear roadmap in order to do. I think I have completed, covered. Thank you very much. And we see the coherence between what you said and what Chantal was saying. It's not only parallel roads, but I think it's converging path, trying to encourage all this convergence that we talked about at the beginning. Mr. Zaki is not here. He was supposed to represent the African Union to say one single word. We follow, as our friends from your continent said yesterday, we have to see what the African Union will do with the NEPAD program, which is a development program, and see how NEPAD can integrate more than today SSE in their actions and play as an important support role. I'm going now to hand over to Denis. Thank you very much, Thierry. I would like to hand over the floor to Fat Chiyoge, who is the General Director, Africa, for internationals that were made by the international institutions and the important role that filled work by the cooperative on the African soil. Over to you, Madame. Merci beaucoup, Denis.
Foremost, to thank the organizers for inviting us. That is the International Cooperative Alliance Global, but also the International Cooperative Alliance Africa. As we have heard, my name is Chiyoge Sifa. I'm the Regional Director for the International Cooperative Alliance. Please allow me first to just introduce my organization in the next 1 minute or so before I could respond to the question. The International Cooperative Alliance was formed in 1895, so we are a century and a half, about a century and a half old, quite old. We do represent cooperatives. We are in 112 countries with a membership of 318 cooperative organizations, which in turn represent 3 million cooperative enterprises. In terms of job creations, we have created more than 280 million jobs. And in terms of turnover, we have been having problem being able to give the annual turnover for all the cooperatives, those worldwide. However, looking at the biggest or largest cooperatives in the world, we talk about the 300 largest with an annual turnover of more than 2 trillion USDs per annum. In terms of offices, our headquarters is based in Brussels with 4 regional offices. The Americas headquartered in Costa Rica, Asia Pacific headquartered in New Delhi, European office, that is Eurocorp, headquartered in Brussels as well, and the African office headquartered in Nairobi, and that is where I am based. In terms now of what we do, and that somehow already starts speaking to the response or the question that Denis had asked, we do unite all cooperatives, so we are the global voice of all the cooperatives worldwide. We represent to them through other government agencies, UN, and the like, the World Bank, among others. So we are the custodian of the cooperative principles and values. We also do promote and the cooperative business model, and this we have been doing it together with other UN agencies under the COPAC, namely the ILO, the UNDSA, and the other like-minded organizations. We also do cooperative development in so many other ways, as I will elaborate on that later on. We do also advocacy research, and under research, I have just talked about a few statistics. We do that together with UREX, and we usually have an annual edition of how we are faring in various sectors. So we do encourage quite a number of us here to be providing the information. Now, in terms of how do we advance the cooperative model, remember cooperative is part and parcel of the social and solidarity economy enterprises. So basically, in terms of the resolution which has just been approved by the United Nations. We did work together with other UN agencies, first at that level, but also we do advocacy with government, the various governments in the respective countries, be it Africa, Asia, Europe, or Americas, to make sure that as they go to represent their countries, also they do represent the cooperative in those countries and make sure that the cooperative agenda and by large the social and solidarity economy enterprise voice is also heard. So like I said, we did that. Now in terms how should we then implement the resolution, we are already in the far front. Like I've said, We do participate, or rather to the preparations of the G20, B20, through our member organization in particular countries where it is being hosted. And for that, we make sure that the voice of cooperatives and also the social and the solidarity economy by large is also heard. At UN level, I have already said, so we do quite a lot of work and the lobbying with the ILO, the UNDSA, and the like, and even the FAO. In terms of African Union, we do have 2 programs with the African Union. We have been working with them on 2 fronts. First, on the social and solidarity economy policies, but also projects. And it's unfortunate that Mr. Savelo is not here. For sure, he was supposed to have elaborated more on the work we have been doing on the same. We also do work with the Pan-African parliaments, and we have a project with them on the cooperative board, Africa Cooperative Board or law. It is at a very advanced stage, and we are hoping that within the course of the year we shall be able to have it approved by the head of states. I would like also to say that in terms of governments, we do work directly with the various governments, like in the case of ICA Africa. We do have what we call the ministerial conference. Last year in October, we had the last one in Egypt, and this month in Nairobi, Kenya, we'll be having the technical committee of the ministerial conference to try and unpack the resolutions and make sure that each country represented does implement the resolution and reports back to the office. So basically, we are very keen on making sure that from the global scene to the continental scene up to the country level, we have the voice and the voice of cooperatives and for by large social and the solidarity economy heard by all. I would like also to say that in terms of moving forward, before I talk to the moving forward, I would like to link the study which was done by UNDSA with the help of the ICA Africa. There is a particular study on how to formalize informal economy through cooperatives. It's a very interesting one by UNDSA, and I would like to urge the participants to just go to the website of UNDSA and you'll find the finding of the research with our contribution. It was very important but also insightful findings, given that it was almost during the COVID period or the aftermath. Without further ado, I would like also to thank once again our sisters and brothers in the social and the solidarity economy, because we have been working together with other actors in making sure that we showcase the importance and the values of the social and solidarity economy, especially after the COVID and during these turbulent times. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup.
Very much. You have underlined a lot of action plan and action lines, among which I think you haven't designed a classical business model, but an objective social and solidarity business model. And I think this is one of the action paths. And listening to you, I remember things that were said in the 2 preceding days in relation to the Pan-African actions at large, and the fact that we speak less of equitable trade as we used to do in the past. And this has reminded me of the idea that we needed to move from a classical equitable trade into a more solidarity type of commerce that would be the best one for SSE. Some people talked about inter-country platforms, inter-organizations, cooperatives that needed to be changed. I think we have to have a deeper vision of it and articulate and accept to do it at the international level, which is a new challenge, a critical challenge in relation to the stakes that we have to face, and which will also demonstrate that SSE has its functions that some people thought they were the only one to use, and values that some other people thought they were the only one to own. So these are the things that I wanted to say. She's been coming to our Mont Blanc meetings. We know Noya, who is the director of the Unit on Social and Solidarity Economy at OECD, and she has already brought new ideas and carried the resolution of OCDE. And she told me that they were setting up an expert groups on social and solidarity economy, and it would be very interesting to see what they expect to bring as output, and how the OCDC resolution could contribute to social and solidarity economy. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Thierry, for your nice words of introduction. I wanted, before answering to your question, just tell you how this forum has inspired me, and once listening to the vision of the different mayors and ministers in particular, on the African continent in particular, I really believe that SSE on this continent has a promising future, has a very promising future. And I think and do believe, your mic, please speak on the mic, the international law and the European Union, which is not with us today, have been the first to set up an action plan on SSE in order to offer globally, in order to offer globally tools and for you. Denis just reminded us of the cancellations of work done in 2022. We did not agree on ILO because of our different agenda, but there is a booming it was not possible to ignore the international organization, but who I think show that we will continue to work and discuss if we really want with the European Commission. We have a world coverage of SSE, and for some countries who belong to our three organizations, the world strengthened world coverage to enable the governance to have a better vision of it. The recommendation allows a framework, a political framework, where we can work on 9 different pillars, which are very practical, tangible political actions that represent the public policy ecosystem, and that will and legal framework, institutional framework, access to the markets, access to finances, social impact measures, and And anything, something that I feel important to underline, I think it's the same for my colleagues of the international organizations, is that those framework that exist are not the result of our own analysis. They've been designed through consultations and continuous consultation with the governments, and for OECD with actors of the social and solidarity economy, because we wanted to understand their needs. Because in the long work that we have done, very often directly with the countries in the framework of the country analysis, we realized that there were different perceptions on what was valid, and we wanted to have a comprehensive framework in order to put in place something that would be useful. So this recommendation exists now, it's here, but it's not enough, it's not sufficient. We shouldn't it shouldn't be kept in a library, and this is the reason why, as Thierry said, at the request of the French government, we have created this informal group, expert group, an informal expert group requested by the French Secretary of State, Madame Chakpar, with a very precise objective. OECD should, in 4 years' time, present a report to the Council of Ministers, because OECD has approved this recommendation adopted by all the countries of OECD. 36 plus 8 is 48 countries. Okay, this is what I was looking for. You want to go?
So OECD should produce a report to show what is the status of implementation with regard to this recommendation. And for the preparation of this report, we are building a toolkit which will allow us to provide a detailed corpus. If you take a look at the recommendation, you will see that for each pillar, we have some principles that could inspire countries and actors alike. Countries have asked us to provide fine-tuned guidance, and we're going to do that by trying to bring together a tool to develop an inspiring toolkit which collects best practices, good examples of policies. So the ambition of this think tank is to provide a stable network of expertise that can also help us to monitor the various developments in member states, so that they are always ready to share this expertise among countries. What is the composition of this group? As of now, on the 44 countries that have adopted the recommendation, about 20 of them are committed, and we do hope we are actually working to increase this number. We have government representatives, we have 20 government that have designated representative in this group. And we held a meeting a few days ago, like at the beginning of the week, and we have 2 hours of interesting discussion on their priorities and on how they think they can commit to help us put in place this toolkit that the government may use later on to work on their public policy ecosystem. The group will meet 4 times if governments request it. It is co-chaired by OECD and by France. because France has suggested the creation of this group, but it's going to be a rotative chairmanship, and other countries may wish to take the leadership. We did a polling to try to understand what are the expectations of countries with regard to this group. So the majority, I think almost 80% of representatives say that they're going to use this group as a platform for exchange and sharing on SSE, like a space to monitor development. But all this should be done concretely. We don't just have a think tank. So the purpose is to implement this recommendation and help OECD to understand how to facilitate its implementation. As for concrete questions, and this answers your question, what are we going to do? I think the novelty is to provide a dedicated space for social economy within OECD, and to try to brainstorm on issues that were deemed as priority by countries. And don't be surprised to... So on the number of priority measurement of the social impact, as someone rightly pointed out, I think one of the ambitions of our respective resolutions and recommendations was to lay the emphasis on the existence of a social economy, to provide visibility. So social impact measures are also a way to strengthen visibility, but obviously we are asking for guidance on market access issues, on data. Many governments during the meeting did talk about the need to have data on social economy, because we don't have much data. We have access to financing, social innovation, because the OECD recommendation is on social and a solidarity economy and social innovation. Because we realize, and this brings us to the issue of definition, it's crucial to have a definition. We actually realize that we have huge diversity, because even within one country we have different resonance. See? So we do hope that this work will actually advance this reflection. And I will finish by saying that on the trends, countries participating in this informal working group have asked us to support them in the reflection and political policy action and on social economy and the transition, circular economy, internationalization of social economy, digitalization, and relations between social economy and employment, and a number of issues. I'm gonna stay here, stop here. I hope I answer your question. Thank you, Antonella. You did more than answer my questions. So I'm struck by what you said when you refer to previous speakers. So global coverage of social and solidarity economy, this notion of global coverage, this will develop. So obviously I'm also struck by what you announced, Chanteline, you yourself and others. So we have meetings, regular meetings to monitor the commitments and move forward. And I think this is quite commendable. I think we need to have SSE summits who do not just meet every 20 years like the Summit of Cities, which we attended. So this summit, we actually made sure that the Quito Forum or Summit of Cities so considers SSE other natural partners. Before proceeding, I would like to tell you that we have a KA slot. I hope we have roving microphone in the room. So I give the floor to Lamidini. Over to you. The roving microphone, is it working? Very quickly. So roving microphones are not working now. This is to introduce Danekor, the 3 capacities today. Is representing the mutualist movement of health for many years now. She's chair of OECD Forum International and he's member of the Economic and Social Committee for Europe. And he's representing also European institutions here. And in this framework, we have various important interventions. And Alain would wish to present a more political vision of interventions. And for this political section, I would like to greet him with a round of applause. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So thank you. I wish to thank conveners of this forum for the quality of the work. So I'm representing European institution and the Economic and Social Committee for Europe, which is one of the legislative institution. I was chairman and now I'm vice chair of the domestic market and responsible for social economy. The committee is working with 2 or 3 major branches, employers, representative of businesses, the trade union and the civil society. I'm representing the civil society here, but I'm going to talk about social economy and talk about the relationship with the business world, and that's the focus today. Today, more than ever, social economy cannot neglect or do without the need to ask a question about its program, policy program and ideological framework. This idea is far from being new. The history we're writing today is a heritage of struggles that we had for years, and we have different conception of the operation and organization of societies. I cannot help giving you 2 milestones. The first one, 1886. Social economy has a long tradition. We recognize the cooperative work as one of the transformative force of the current society. Its merit is to show that the current system of subordination of work to the capital may be replaced by the association of producers that are free and equal. The cooperative system, from individual efforts, is powerless to transform the capitalist society. To convert social production in a cooperative system of work, we need change in the general condition of societies, which cannot be achieved through the organization of society. So the power of state, and this should be transferred to producers themselves. This sentence is by Karl Marx. The second quotation I'm going to share, we are in 1938. Unless cooperative will evolve So they will be in competition with capitalist businesses, and they will have to follow the movement and adapt to the evolution of capitalism. They will all be overspent. They have to accept to adapt to market economy, or they leave the bureaucracy system, or they can be in the system of workers, cooperators, and they may be facing a competitive world, social economy. If cooperation and mutualization are essential in this development and popular support, so social economy cannot be developed only by addressing the issue of power. And this is Rosa Luxembourg. From Marx and Luxembourg epoch, cooperative system have developed, and they've never been able alone to question fundamentally the capitalist system. And capitalism has developed, thanks to Marx analysis. Inequalities are huge, multinational companies are everywhere, and the world war is a field of investigation for the capital. Any societal project should ask the question to overdo the limits set by capitalism. The strength of the system we are in is to lock all the idea that the society may operate otherwise. So we have a lot of issues, and we have austerity policies, deprivation of services without collective added value. And we are advocating individualism, and this led to the emergence of digital platforms, new forms of wild capitalism. We have climate crisis, environmental crisis, which led to war, nationalism, misery, and unemployment. If social economy is still marginal, let's face reality. In some European countries, social economy accounts for 10% of GDP. In some countries, it's 1%. This will not change the world today, because the majority of the political world only see economy under the prism of capitalism. So this issue is not new. Let me take an example. So those that were destroying the ozone layer, this fight was possible because a replacement technology was possible. So producing this will help to actually benefit from firms. So we have polluting companies that could have used their profit for this transition, but by using public resources and increasing public debt. But the gravity of the problem we are facing today is not the disappearance of the ozone layer. So how do we get out of capitalism and move from profit to plan our production in the interest of the planet and the population of the world? The will to get the social economy from marginalism will be a real fight for our existence. But let's face reality. The capitalist system will put social SSE under a huge pressure. We need to provide more rationale, more obligation, more organization, more impact measurement by encouraging innovation. Social economy cannot be a dominant system unless we seriously tackle the capitalist system and prevent it from being harmful. So measures will be proposed and negotiated with political decision makers, but we have to rebuild an arm of strength. Those who control financing and the control of economy controls the future of society. This danger is that of power. We should not let us impose our way of operating, our way of assessment. We should not be seduced to ensure our development by private funding from philanthropists and from foundations. Despite our ambition to propose an alternative, will be in capitalist economy will be subjected to competition and this market logic with the thought of ideological dominance. But companies and SSE organization can get together via their statutes, their practice, their objective. There should be a social movement, a political strength, and this calls for a unified action regardless of our differences, and we need to endorse our common vision. So we are working towards the emergence of these ways, and we have to provide a more transparent and sustainable model and more responsible one. We are championing another economic model which pleads for the dissemination of all principles, all assets, and all components of social and solidarity economy. So SSE plays a role in the production, distribution, consumption of basic services, but it reconciles with collective interests, territorial cohesion. In an area of economic emergency, social economy can impose itself, can develop, and can transform the dominant economy. Through our social economy, we'll demonstrate that companies can be managed democratically in a united manner and by following the general interest. The development of SSE, which is the key of just world. We should now strive to enlarge the agenda of SSE at the international level in order to initiate an alternative globalization. Financing of this transition is crucial with regard to SDG developed by UN for 2030. So ILO findings, which have been just presented, OECD recommendation, and the European Union Action Plan. So to finish, I would like to call on all members of this assembly and the members of the panel. UN set 8 objectives, and not all 8 objectives were met. So we had the roadmap of SDG for 2030. What I'm proposing is to make sure that SSE represent 50% of GDP of states by 2050, 50% of the GDP by 2050. So please take a look at this objective. This is a concrete goal which is in line with the mobilization of human energies. And I'm going to appeal to you to put this objective in the UN resolution and in the evolution to be made in 2025. I thank you. So this is a mobilizing and engaging address. Thank you for this. After this forum, I would like to greet with the Secretary General of GSEF, who is in front of me, to all of you that have taken part in this 6-day work. And it was a mobilizing platform, and this has allowed us to go back to our respective countries with new thoughts, new information, new field reality, and to plan for more positive prospects. I would like to finish this round table by thanking obviously Thierry Jeantet, who co-chaired this round table, and all the panel members. And we say just a few words on behalf of the think tank for Solidarity, which has just published a study on SSE in Africa. After hearing all the representatives from international organizations, we may say that after the economic and social and environmental crisis that we have undergone over the past years, today we have a new global paradigm, and we have just heard the various elements, and SSE have the essential role to play in that. And this is valid for all continents, but it's particularly resonating in Africa. And organizations do understand this by putting SSE on respective agendas and by making sure that your institution adopts the plans and recommendations, a universal definition to lead to a universal declaration, not to forget the African strategy. How can we envisage a sequel which will not be a kind of cacophony of action that will be conducted without consultation? So this forum and the conclusion of this forum could be the basis of common action, which were called upon by the various speakers this morning. So as for global and concerted strategies, which actions do we need to take away from this forum so that we can say that by 2013, when the SDG, the mayor of Dakar said on the opening ceremony, and I think the idea is to be in this 2030 perspective before thinking about 2050 with a particular objective. This is to say by 2030, so we need to get population from poverty. We need to give work and hope to young people. We need to make sure that women are autonomous by developing their entrepreneurship and to allow their families to get treatment and send their children to school. So young people and women were crucial elements of this forum, and it's interesting to recall, and this has been recalled by all the those who have taken the floor. So women and young people are central elements. With the momentum that SSE has, this alignment we talked about, so in this period of crisis, don't you think that it's time to materialize a new social and economic order? Do we agree that we cannot continue with business as usual, and social and solidarity economy is the right way for social, economic and environmental development that citizens are expecting? If yes, ladies and gentlemen, dear friend from SSE, I'm asking the question. I'm wondering, what should each and everyone do to get there? We need to ask the question and try to bring answer to this question. Actions are possible and objectives are achievable. Without regulatory framework, we can see that at the international level, and we can see it in countries where this framework is present and operational. We have a myriad of initiatives which allow population, citizens to benefit by giving them a status with rights and benefits. So the example of Senegal is important with the new law 2021, which made it possible to come up with a regulatory framework with a number of new initiatives that have been made, and full and great country. But we can also talk about Spain, which will change and social economy in November. The last element I would like to recall before we close, that is the issue of financing, which we encourage multilateral and financial institutions to support SSE initiatives. This requires to think about new mechanisms and instruments more adapted to SSE and SSE players, in particular informal economy. We heard that a number of times over the past days, and I would like to insist on this element of informal sector. We need to have innovation on financing. Replicate, how can we allow for sharing good practices? What can the various continents bring? The next conference of Bordeaux of the International Forum can provide breakthrough. Yes, dear friends, another world is possible. This world will be based on fair transition. Let's put all together international institutions that are present here, and I thank you for your field actions. So now we move on to a Q&A slot. Don't hesitate to raise your hand and ask questions. I see that Michel had the... Do we have roving microphone around? Yes, thank you, Thierry. Can you hear me? Question. It's going to be a question. As you, Chantal and Thierry mentioned, we're going from a phase of advocacy for political advocacy of SSE to a phase which is more active, that of implementation. And in this phase, social impact seems crucial because governments should be convinced, and to be convinced, they need to understand that behind SSE, we have impacts that are either social, environmental, or societal as a whole. So there is an issue. And there is another issue, which is the fact that the consultancy firms will try to provide a number of methods on the impact measurement. As part of the European plan for SSE, our ambition is to have a single method to measure social impact. Therefore, I think it's important for the findings of the Dakar Forum to mention the fact that social impact should be a priority for all the actors of social economy. Now, to answer your question, it was rather a comment. I think Antonella, through OECD, has extensive experience on impact measurement, and he will explain us what OECD is doing in cooperation with the European Commission, who is not unfortunately present. Let's move on to Antonella, maybe Antonella, on this question of impact measurement. If you have the roving microphone, you may stay where you are. Yes, go ahead. Thank you, Michel. I do agree with you, as I was saying, on the part of field actors, there is much attention on social impact measurement issues. It's true that more often than not, social impact measurement is a bit cumbersome. We have red tape. Not all organizations may not have this capacity. Forget that the social impact measurement allows for contribution. Is it possible to have a universal social impact measurement? We've been thinking about this for years. We have published a number of things in cooperation with the European Commission. We launched a few months ago, as part of an important work by the Commission, we launched a project called Global Action for the promotion of social economy ecosystems. And this is the outcome, which means that we need at least to have a process which is a consistent process. a generalized one. We're going to go further and try to listen. We have so many methodology in terms of measuring social impact, but very few are likely to capture the impact of social economy. So we try to continue our work to try to get founding elements which are likely to address social economy, and then we can have something universal. We're going to see, I don't know. Thierry, since I have the microphone, I want to, there's something I forget to mention. It has to do with the informal working group, which is made up of representatives from government, but governments may appoint networks, and they can work together, network actors and government, in order to move forward. I think this was important to mention. So a word to the mouth is enough. Chantaline?
Okay. Make sure the... okay, that's it. Thank you for the question. It is very important to have social and environmental impact measurement because the task force is working based on the SSE modalities collectively in solo and in a participative, with a participative approach. And this is how we carry out measurement with our colleagues of the European Commission. We don't want to invent anything, but this should stay in the report that the task force explains how SSE advances in and moves forward each of the SDGs, health, education, hunger in the world. Each of those pillars should be turned into indicators based on the Union Secretary General, who invited, he said, UNDP to create a report on which all the UN agencies on how to measure the GDP. So we need to be able to use other indicators. And among those indicators, we have human capital, natural capital, non-paid care given by the women, social cohesion, solidarity, communities' resilience. And once we would be able to carry out measurement of those indicators, SSE by itself will appear, and this will be very enthusiastic to work with all the stakeholders in order to have a correct and accurate measurement of progress in order to measure well-being. Are there any other questions? I can see one question. Who's got a microphone? Introduce yourself. Je suis président Action Femme in Casablanca. I work on SSE. We have already worked in many workshops and shared our experience in providing support to women and for them to be able to design their own projects and work to have an impact on the economy of the country. Very interesting to hear all the interventions, whom I would like to thank, and all the organizations that you represent here. It's rather a question than a conclusion. Okay. Would you please ask your question, because we have time constraints? If you could ask your specific question. We are militants, neighborhood militants, and we develop practices, and we need to get support from experts. And we can see the presentation of the experts committee. You talked about, okay, so here we need those tools, and you also need obviously to learn about our practices on the field. And this is why I wanted to say you have to link both sides for us to reach the objectives that I mentioned of creating 50% GDP in our countries and have a stronger CSE. This is an affirmation and a strong demand that we are formulating, which is very important. All the people who are here share that call, and I've heard that call. So we have to close this session. If some people want to speak, we don't want to just very. I am Dauda Sakho. I am a teacher in economy and local development at Dakar University. In relation to the objectives that one of the interventions set in 2050, the question I'm asking is, don't you think that there is a deficit of solidarity towards the companies and actors of the SSE in Europe who do not invest? Africa, it's just the multinationals who are doing the direct foreign investment. Don't you think there is a question we should ask and objectives to set in order to measure the level of solidarity of those companies in Africa and on the other continents? Thank you. I will answer. I think I will answer directly. It's an important question, which leads me to think of how we can develop practical education of SSE, how to manage an association, an SSE company, one issue that you are raising, and the issue of comparing the experiences in order for people to be able to share them. And to conclude this session, I'm not going to say, hey, citizens, take your weapons. I'm just saying, continue working, dear citizens, on your SSE actions, dear citizens.